Okay, so here's a quick explanation of flange, nailer holes. I've only got one beam in this project, and they want studs for everything. So we'll just use this little elevator beam as an example. First option would be just adding a note. So you can come here into the settings or right click it, user defined attributes, or in the settings panel over here, click UDAs. And there's this little notes tab, and you can just know that notes 1 is the top flange, notes 2 is the bottom flange, notes 3 is the web. And you could just put, nailer holes, right? And then blocking holes. And what you could do is you could just select all of the beams that you want blocking holes on. Select all of the beams that you know you want web blocking holes on, and just click modify. And then select all the beams that you know you want nailer holes on the top flange, and select modify for note 1, and then same for note 3. And then when you get into the drawings, you can just add a note, on the actual beam. So like actually here, let's just do it real quick. That way you see it. So notes, line 1, nailer holes. Or here, top flange holes, right? Because it'll be pretty, you could just, your fabricator will know. Here, actually, nailer holes. Then there's no question. And click modify. Then go to, is that B5? Computer's running a little bit slower when I'm trying to record. B5. So nothing, obviously, on this beam. It's the easiest one. But if you just go, I believe you can do a part mark. I think you can do a note. I believe. Let's just check. I don't use notes very often, but if you go, so user defined, here we go. It was note 1, wasn't it? There it is. Top flange nailer holes. So note 2 and 3 were obviously empty, but if you clicked note 2 and 3 and added them, it would say web blocking holes and bottom flange nailer holes or whatever. And then you would just save this note as beam holes, and boom, that's a very, very, very quick way to add that technically in the model. But A, you can't see it. B, they're not laid out. C, it won't show up on NC1 files or anything like that. So it's kind of a cheap way to do it. So it's not my preferred method. So what I usually end up doing is just going from system line to system line and throwing a point. And then a lot of times I will do it this way. So I know it's 10 1/8. You can just also, look for that information, 10 1/8 for the height. But I usually do it exactly in this process. Throw one on the system line, copy one down, throw one in the middle. Then what you can do is you can look up your gauge line for a W10 by 22. Flange gauge is going to be this. Flange bolt gauge, 10 by 22. Right there, 2 3/4. Oops. So you just come here, bolt. I usually, for whatever reason, just make them A307. A lot of times that's what is in there. So you can use the correct grade, even though I end up just doing a hole. Call them 1/2 inch, 16th inch tolerance. What did I say? 2 1/4 or 2 3/4? 2 3/4. So the X distance is going to be 2 3/4, and then we're going to start -1 inch and 3/8. Okay. And then, 4 times 24, boom. And then you've got those. And then if you want, there's no fast way of doing this, but you can make it like that. And then you can either go the opposite direction. You can either copy this down 10 and an eighth or go this way. And now they're alternating per flange. And then it's the same with your middle gauge. This starts to get a little difficult because the way my information has it, 10 by 22, this web gauge is from here, and it always seems way too close to the flange to be good for bolting through wood. So a lot of times I just kind of change it based on what makes a little bit more sense. But if you were to go by this 2 1/4 down from the flange, the easiest way to do that is negative 2 1/4, positive 2 1/4. Now you've got where those holes should be. So a lot of times you can just, a lot of times this is how I measure things. 5 5/8. So we'll go array 0 0 0. And the reason I do that is because a lot of times it just resets anyway. And then 5" 5/8. And then 2 and 13/16. And then again, you would just copy it out and delete. Oops, I did one too many. It's supposed to be 4 times 2 feet. And then you can delete, and bada bing, bada boom, you've got them. So that I usually work off the center. Then one by one, you can move or delete if there's stiffeners or buckets or anything in the way. You could also just move the whole thing. There's some parametric stuff you can do with it being glued to the middle, but that's not something that I do generally because I usually do these last. I add the holes last. The last thing is you can do a custom component, which again I've never really gone into, but it would look a lot like this because when you do studs like this, it's actually multiple components in one. So you can explode this component, and then you can see that this stud is really just this stud copied every X amount of feet. So I think it's called array. Yeah, linear array tool. So what you could do is that linear array tool, you could basically make a single bolt hole and then copy it. But I don't know how this tool automatically does this layout part right here because you would have to start obviously with a bolt hole that lines itself up, minimum 6 inches, 3-foot centers, whatever you put in there for the command. So that would be the best way of doing it. I've never gone down that path, but if you do and you make that component and it works, send it to me. Thanks.